Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our presentation on the 2024 Gallup survey results. We're excited to have with us two of our Gallup consultants, Robert Wedwin and Rosia Tima, who will guide us and you through how to access your specific survey data. But before we dive in, please keep in mind that if you have four or fewer direct reports, or if fewer, then four of them completed the survey, your individual results will be grouped with those in your division or department. You will be able to ask Jeanette or me to run those specific reports for you. Other than that, I will turn it over to Robert and Rocio to walk you through the details.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And looking forward to kind of running through with you all initially some things to think about when it comes to engagement. Why does it matter? And then we'll jump in with Rocio to go over a demo of the Gallup Access platform and really the tools and resources you have at your disposal as you're thinking about your own data or as you're even thinking about employee engagement as a whole. So I'm going to start sharing my screen with you all. And you'll be able to see why engagement in just one moment. There we go. And so, for those of you who maybe went through the survey in the previous administration, this may be a good review for you. For those of you where maybe you're a newer manager, newer leader, and this is the first time you'll have data, we really just want to reflect and make sure we all understand the big why around engagement and why it's so important to focus on these psychological needs that employees have within the workplace. So taking a step back, when we're thinking why engagement, the reason that engagement is so important is that not only does it produce sustainable high performance despite anything that may come an employee's way, but it also builds a culture of high development that focuses on individuals and their value to the team, to you as a manager or leader, and to the organization itself. Despite however you are working, you have these fundamental psychological needs that must be met. And with how Gallup defines engagement, we split it into three employee engagement segments: the actively disengaged, the not engaged, and the engaged categories. Now, I'm going to start right to left here and focus first on the engaged. These employees are not only enthusiastic about the work that they're doing, but they're the true drivers of the organization, really pushing it forward in terms of innovation and owning the work that they do. The not engaged. Now, this is just a group that is unattached to what they do day in and day out. They don't really put in the time or energy or passion into what they do, but they show up day to day for their work. The actively disengaged. Now, this is a group that you do have to watch out for because not only could they be resentful that their psychological needs weren't being met at one time or another, like the not engaged, but they could be acting out on their unhappiness. So, what they do within the workplace could really undermine what those drivers, the engaged employees, are really trying to accomplish. Right now, you're looking at the engagement segments within US workplaces, and this is from our polling data from Q3 of 2024. And you see an 18% actively disengaged, a 51% not engaged, and a 31% engaged. Now, the key difference here is that when we're thinking about our best practice organizations, these are Gallup's Exceptional Workplace Award winners for 2024. That number for actively disengaged goes to a 5%, the not engaged to a 25%, and the engaged to a 70%. What we really want to see when it comes to engagement is the actively disengaged around that single digit number. And that's really where the best practice organizations also pull through in that category too. Now, in terms of these engagement segments, really how we pulled together this data is through our Gallup's Q12 survey. So you'll notice that it's built as a pyramid, engagement hierarchy, where questions 1 through questions 12 make up that pyramid itself, split into four key categories: the basic needs, individual contribution, teamwork, and growth. We consider basic needs and individual contributions, so questions 1 through question 6, as foundational items. Basically, those are items that will then lead to greater engagement across the engagement hierarchy. You'll notice that each engagement elements of questions 1 through questions 12 focus on a key employee need within the workplace. So a question like question 1, I know what is expected of me at work, focus me. A question like question 6, there's someone at work who encourages my development, help me grow. All of these specific employee needs are really there to ensure not only that there is great management in terms of how you can have a role in terms of what is affecting the day to day of an employee. But what we see is that managers themselves have the greatest influence when it comes to creating an engaging workplace. So these are a few key stats that we're thinking of, but I really want us to center first on the middle with that 70% of the variance in terms of employee engagement is from the manager themselves. And this makes sense. You have the best understanding of the day to day of an employee. You can create a microculture within your team itself, and you're going to be understanding what may be barriers, what may be issues, and what may be employees living out their best possible role and having the best possible role clarity in the work that they do. You'll notice that a couple of these other stats talk about employees who are supervised by highly engaged managers are 59% more likely to be engaged than those supervised by actively disengaged managers. Your engagement matters just as much as individual contributors do. So, thinking about how we can make sure that you feel like you have the resources, the support that you need in terms of thinking about engagement, that's really what we're driving in today's training today. I wanted to move on to the next slide and kind of talk about the bottom line why and what do you get out of engagement. So we did a meta-analysis comparing basically our top quartile teams of our database versus our bottom quartile teams, and we saw key positive outcomes as well as fewer negative outcomes when it came to comparing and seeing the difference between these two groups. So things like 10% difference in customer loyalty engagement, 18% difference in terms of productivity, as in sales, a 23% difference in profitability, and most importantly, even for me as an individual contributor, is that 70% difference in terms of well being. And just thinking about it as we kind of go through, what engagement really gives you is a more resilient employee, a more resilient team, and a more resilient organization. Because as that driver, as that person in the organization, in pushing it forward in terms of innovation and what's really next, you're able to kind of move past those initial barriers better than employees that are not getting their psychological needs being met. Now, those negative outcomes, thinking about a 78% difference in absenteeism, a 21 to 51% difference in turnover, these are critical when it comes to understanding that employee engagement really drives performance across the board when it comes to an organization. So, with you as a manager and your role to play within this, really thinking about how you're approaching conversations when it comes to creating a culture of employee engagement is critical. So, thinking about how to be a facilitator in those meaningful conversations, encouraging people to participate, providing maybe engagement focused questions when you're having either daily interactions with individuals, daily interactions with teams, weekly, monthly, just spending the time to listen and really approach what may be affecting an employee's day to day is what a manager can do best when approaching employee engagement. Now, for those of you who did have data with the previous survey and will have data again for this survey, we wanted to provide some questions for you to be thinking about as you're analyzing or even looking at your own team results. So, for example, if you had items improve and what we consider an improvement or even a decline at a team level when you're looking at your own data is a point two or more is what we consider a meaningful change. So as you're looking through your data, if you're seeing anything less than a point two, those may not be those meaningful changes. And really, where you want to drive and really think about is where are you seeing those meaningful changes growth or decline in terms of the engagement results. So asking yourself questions, if you saw improvements of what did you do to influence these increases? What did your team do? When you're thinking about lower scores and maybe seeing declines, what could have affected that overall engagement? Were there underlying feelings? Were there challenging times? And as you're kind of going through, asking yourself, what is one new thing you have discovered about your team where you saw declines in your own results? Now, although 70% of the variance in terms of employee engagement is the manager, really it's an opportunity for you to also ensure that your team members, individual contributors, employees really play into and take ownership of their own engagement. These are some positive um, situations or things to be thinking about that they could take their own role in, whether it's boosting their own well-being, making sure that they have a focus on what do they do well within their role, how does it connect with CCA's overall mission, and thinking about how do they interact with the people around them and provide them that space and opportunity in an environment that is trusting and open. When you're thinking about how do we share best accomplishments, making sure that they ask for feedback, this is really an opportunity for them to become ambassadors for their own team and your team to really show that this is the environment that not only you as a manager is trying to create, but that they're trying to have an impact on as well. Finally, before we shift over to the demo portion itself with Rocio, really I wanted to highlight as just an end note in terms of, again, the why engagement, what is important about it, is as a manager, you have the best opportunity to make sure what's happening with the results stays relevant to the day-to-day of those employees. So thinking about where have we improved? Where are we strong? How do we continue to grow in terms of our own engagement? And if there are areas that could be a focus, how do we make sure that we're engaging and bringing that into our conversations to really drive growth? Creating visibility, having the opportunity to reflect on, especially when you're bringing engagement focused questions into your team conversations, individual conversations. How do you make sure that it's top of mind when you're thinking about things like role clarity, appreciation of individuals, when you're thinking about opportunities for growth within the role? This is how you create a visibility as a manager. And then follow-ups. This is really just thinking about how do you integrate into whether it is a weekly connect, a monthly connect. As you're going throughout the year, how do we make sure that it stays top of mind so that people really see change year over year in terms of what is CCA's organizational focus on engagement throughout the year? Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to Rocio, who's going to be running us through the Gallup Access portion of today's demo. Rocio, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks so much, Robert. I'm going to be sharing my screen here, and we're going to go into the Gallup Access platform. I'll be covering two different areas within the platform as they relate to you as managers. The first section that we're going to cover is the report section. So that's where you're going to access your team scores. And then I'll go into our resources section. And that's really where you're going to go to learn and understand about engagement, just filled with some great content to help you out as you're looking at your team reports. Okay. So when you log into Gallup Access, you'll land here on the Gallup Access dashboard. And really you land here because it's the quickest place to launch into different areas within the platform. Okay. First thing you'll notice here at the top is a greeting with your name. And then just below that, if you have completed your top 5 strengths, you'll have those available here if they are in your CCA Global account. Over to the right, you'll see quick actions. Feel free to click into those tiles to launch to different areas within the platform. You'll notice I might have some more bells and whistles than you have available within your dashboard, but a great area to launch into different areas within Gallup Access. Just below that, you'll have your most recent report available to you, so you can click into your report right here from your dashboard, but I'll be showing how to access your report from the menu bar here in just a bit. Over to the left, you'll see advice and articles. And those are going to be resources generated for you based on other viewings that you've had within the platform. Now, if you're a new manager to the platform, they're going to default to our standard engagement resources, but over time, these two tiles are going to become a little bit more tailored to you. And then over here to the bottom left, you'll also see an employee engagement manager learning journey, which is really just a step-by-step guide to help you learn and understand about engagement. Feel free to click into that, a great resource, again, to help you understand about engagement. This is also going to be available within the resources section, which I'll cover a little bit later on as well. So let's move into your reports now. So to do that, I'm just going to go here to the top left. I'm going to click on menu. And I'm going to scroll down and click on reports here. If you were a manager in the past, you'll also see that you have the 2022 report available, but I'm going to go ahead and click into the 2024 one there. And then I'll highlight a few key things here in the top left first. So here in the top left, you'll notice the name of the survey. Then you'll see total respondents, which is the total number of people that click submit on the survey. You'll see the start and end date of the survey field period. And then today we're going to cover the overview, the questions, and the heat map tab. But note whatever view you're in or whatever filter you have applied in your report, you also have the ability to export that out. Okay. To do so, you would come in the top right corner, you'd click on export options, single report, and then you have a few different formats to choose from. But one that I always like to call out is a Q12 summary one pager. It just does a great job of doing just that, putting the Q12 items onto one page. So it's really quick for you to print off and take to any of your team conversations around your data. Okay. I'm going to hit cancel here. Today, I want to point out for the demo, we are using your organization overall scores. Okay. But when you log in, you're going to default to see the overall scores for your direct team. And then if you are a manager of managers, over to the right, you're going to have a toggle that says direct and roll up. Okay. So you'll be able to see the aggregate scores of those people that directly report to you, and then the aggregate scores of those people that indirectly report to you as well. Okay. We do have a minimum threshold that needs to be met in order for us to display data for you, and that is 4 or more respondents. Okay, so if you log in and on your overview page, you're seeing a message that it just means you didn't have at least 4 more people respond to the survey in order for us to display data for you. Over to the left, under this team section, we also added what we call a breadcrumb hierarchy. Okay, so you'll be able to see who you report up into within the organization, so how that was kind of structured on the back end. Now, you won't be able to click into those managers' reports, but at least you'll be able to see how your hierarchy was laid out again on the back end for team reporting. This reporting group dropdown will give you other data cuts to also make within your team. Okay, so this reporting group dropdown, you'll see location, department, and division available as well. You can only drill into those separate data cuts within your line of sight. Okay, so you can't click into different departments that don't roll up into you. And it still has to meet that minimum threshold of 4 or more. So if you're trying to see a group that falls below that threshold, the information will start to become suppressed for you. Okay. Moving further down, you'll also see your engagement mean, which is just the average scores of the Q12 responses there, so 4.29. If I hover over this engagement mean, you'll see these different tick marks. That represents where you need to be to fall into the next percentile ranking. Okay, so 3.75 is a 25th percentile rank. We have the 50th, the 75th, and then the 90th there. Okay. Over to the right, if you were a manager in the past, you'll see a trended mean. So you can see your scores from the 2022 survey and then to this year. So for your organization overall, there was an increase of 0.07. Over to the right, you'll see the percentile ranking. So your organization is currently sitting at or has a mean greater that is 65% greater than those in the Gallup overall database comparison. Okay. This Gallup overall database is inclusive of all of our clients across all different industries, regardless of how many times they've taken the engagement survey as well. So kind of our toughest database comparison there. And then respondents, total number of people that answered at least one of the Q12 items. Just below that, you'll see your highest and lowest ranking items. Okay. Our system uses two measures to call out these high lowest items here. The first measure it takes into consideration is that database comparison, so that Gallup overall database comparison there. So where that mean fell within that database. And then also that engagement hierarchy. So if you recall, Robert shared a pyramid, and kind of depending on where that question falls within that engagement hierarchy, it also, again, taking into consideration that database comparison, will categorize it high or low ranking. Okay, so these two tiles are a great place to start when you're looking at your report. Highest items can kind of be an area of celebration with your teams, and then those lowest ranking items could be an area of opportunity with your teams. Just below that, you'll also see the engagement index. So again, this is another section that Robert kind of covered. We have those three different categories of engagement. We have the engaged, the not engaged, and then actively disengaged. Okay. Over to the right, you'll also see an engagement ratio. So there are 21 engaged employees for each actively disengaged employee within your organization. Okay. For this engagement index, there is a threshold of 100 or more respondents in order for us to display this metric. So unless you have a really large team, which most of you won't, watching this demo, you might not see this total index here. Okay. This is really kind of utilized to kind of paint the big picture for your organization. Okay, so 100 to get the entire index, and then you need at least 30 respondents to get the percent engaged index. So you might see the percent engaged, but then you might not see the full index there. Okay. And then if you are a manager in the past and you have this metric here, you'll also see where your team kind of scored in the past as well. All right, so let me scroll up just a little bit here. That concludes the overview tab. I'm going to click now into the questions tab here. And same thing on this page, we're just going to work our way top to bottom. So moving further down, these tiles are just a recap of what I covered on the overview tab. But then moving further down, you'll also see a results summary snapshot. Okay, this is just a quick way for you to look at all of your Q12 scores to see the mean for each item and then that percentile ranking. And then as you're looking at your report, you're going to notice those different hues of green that is representing where the item fell within that Gallup overall database comparison. So if you look over here on the top right, we have those different breakouts, what those percentile rankings are. And then moving further down, you also have a detailed results view. So for each of the Q12 questions, you have some additional measures and resources embedded within. For today's example, we're going to use Q01. So it asks, I know what is expected of me at work. You'll get to see the total number of respondents for this question. Okay. Also current mean for this item. If you were a manager in the past, you'll see the last mean and change as well. Again, the percentile ranking for this particular question. And then you'll also see the company overall current mean for this item as well. So currently these two measures, so the company overall current mean and the current mean that we're looking at here are the same because we are looking at your company overall scores currently, but they might not be when you're looking at your team scores. Okay. I will also add if you are a manager that didn't meet that threshold of 4 or more and doesn't have your own team reporting, you're still going to get to see the company overall current mean. So that might be a helpful reference point as you're kind of looking at reporting and kind of going into some of those team conversations. And then just below that, I'm going to click on Show Question Insights here. It'll expand the table that has some additional metrics. These four are a recap of what we've already covered. But then what you might also see is this frequency distribution table, which is a percent of people that rated this particular item a 5, 4, 3, and so forth. So you can see how those different responses were distributed there. Okay. In order to get this frequency distribution table, there is a threshold of 10 or more that needs to be met in order for this metric to display. So unless you had at least 10 or more people respond to a particular question, you may or may not see this metric here. Okay. And then current top box is a percent of people that rated this item a 5. I'm I'm going to collapse this here. So I'm just going to click on that question insights button there. And then I also wanted to highlight these two resources. So Learn About Q01 and Item Next Steps. So if you click on Learn About Q01, that's just a helpful resource. So if you're looking at, those items and you feel like you need a little bit more context or understanding behind any of those Q12 questions, click on that link there. It'll launch you into our resources section that really just helps explain the foundation behind that particular question. Okay. So really a robust resource here to help you out and kind of increase your understanding of any of those Q12 questions. If I go back to the main reports page, that was a Learn About Q01 button. And then the other resource I just wanted to quickly highlight is the Item Next Steps button. So if you're kind of curious about what are some things that you can kind of improve upon for that question, you can click on Item Next Steps. Again, it'll launch you into a resource within the platform and just give some recommendations on how to kind of see an increase within that score. All right, so I'm going to scroll back a little ways here. And then two more quick things here in this detailed results view that I wanted to highlight. One is this customized metrics button. If you love to play around with data and want to pull in some additional measures within your reporting, go ahead and click on Customize Metrics. It'll pull up a table here where you can pull in some additional measures. Included within that is another database comparison for other clients who are also in their second year of kind of deploying the engagement survey. So if you want to see how your team kind of stacked up against others in their second year of engagement, that's going to be a great measure there. Okay, I'm going to hit cancel. Again, that was a customized metrics button. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was the engagement hierarchy. Again, Robert covered this in his presentation as well, but it's also available here within the platform so that you can see those different questions and how they're broken out, kind of going from those foundational items up to the top of the hierarchy there. All right, scrolling up to the top again. That concludes the questions tab. And then I just want to briefly touch on the heat map tab here. This is a great tool for managers of managers. What this will allow you to do is to select those different teams within your line of sight to create this heat map view so that you can quickly see pockets of high and low engagement. Okay. You'll have the percentile rankings here again. So as you're creating your heat map, you'll see those different hues of green so that you can quickly isolate, hey, maybe this question is an area of improvement, or maybe this question is doing really well amongst different teams. You might decide to see what's been working really well for those teams working on any particular item. All right, so we've covered the overview, the questions, and the heat map tab in reports. So I'm now going to move into the resources section of the platform. Okay, so scrolling over to the left again and clicking on menu, and then scrolling down and clicking on resources. Again, the resources section is just here to help you, kind of navigate through the platform, navigate through all the different aspects of engagement. When you land into the resources section, you'll notice here at the top, there's a search bar, works like all other search bars. But if there is something that you're curious about, feel free to type any buzzwords in there, hit enter, and it'll pull up any available resources we have related to that item. So again, if you wanted to learn more about that first question of the Q12, type that in, hit enter, and it'll pull up anything related to that we have. If I go back to the main resources page by clicking on resources there, moving further down, you'll also see a recommended section. So again, those are advice and articles generated for you based on your other viewings within the platform. Further down, you also have the Employee Engagement Manager Learning Journey. I mentioned that is available in your dashboard as well. A great tool as you're kind of looking at your reports and trying to figure out what some best next steps would be. This is going to be a great tool for you there. And then moving further down, we also have a trending section. So that's just what's popular within the platform and what our other clients are viewing. And then further down, you can also browse our resources by different topics of interest and also the type of learning that you might like to do. So if you prefer to watch videos over looking at articles or documents, you can filter our content out that way as well. As you're kind of looking through our resources, you'll notice that most of them are designed to be short and sweet with managers in mind. But if there is anything that you need to come back to or a resource that you particularly like and just want to be sure that you have saved and front and center for you, hit this little ribbon. That's a bookmark ribbon. And then if you scroll all the way back up to the top and click on the bookmark tab, it'll have all of your saved resources within there. And then the last quick thing that I'll touch on within resources is the tutorial section. Um, this section is just filled with some more modules and videos to help you navigate through the platform. So if you're curious about how to do XYZ within the platform, sometimes the tutorial section will house that answer for you. Okay. That concludes the resources section, and that is all I have for the Gallup Access demo. Thanks so much for your time.